Welcome to another video on Spring Batch. In the last lecture, we discussed the architecture of Spring Batch in PPT form. Today, we're going to understand it on the code perspective. So let me head to IntelliJ. So just keep this at the back of your mind that you've got item reader, item processor, and item writer. These are the three main things that you need to implement. So let me head to IntelliJ. So I'm going to show you a basic skeleton of a job. So job is typically created using the job builder API. You just have to give the name of the job, and like I mentioned, you have a repository which is already wired. You can have an auto increment ID on this job, and you need to tell it what steps to follow. So if you see the start method, it takes a step argument. The step argument is created from here. Now this looks complicated, but it's not. If you're aware of the functional style of writing code, then this is pretty easy. You just have to chain a lot of functions together. The first step you have to mention is what is the step name. So you can give it some name. Then you can provide the input and output type. So this is my input type. So I'm expecting some sort of POJO of this kind, wherein there is data, there is client ID, and there is a mapping. So it's not necessary you have to follow this kind of way, but you can have anything that whatever DTO you want, you can put it here. Same goes for output. This is my output looks like. So it's pretty simple Java classes. Chunk is where I told you that you have to split the input into smaller parts of data which can be processed sequentially. So chunk is like breaking down the big sized data into smaller parts. You can get the chunk size. I'm taking it from some configuration. You can hard code it if you want, but I go for the configuration driven way. Since you're interacting with database, you need a transaction manager, so that is already wired in. These are ready-made beans wired in. Then you have to tell it what is the writer, what is the processor, and the reader, processor, and writer. So the reader is, again, you can have this in a sophisticated way, or you can just put it as a simple code snippet, but I'm sort of getting it dynamically. But here, if you see that we have got a create reader function, and this reader is going to read data from the file system resource. So we have this on line 34. If there are any headers to skip, then you can configure them here. Then you have to tell it what is the mechanism. So in my case, I'm reading a CSV file. So what are the column names and how are they separated? So we've got a delimiter here. What are the column names you have to specify? You have to give it how can I map this to a row. So this is where the mapping logic happens. It's pretty straightforward. Once you see some of the demo codes or you read the documentation, you'll understand it. It's very simple. It's not that difficult. And then you have to configure this. So this is one of the inbuilt flat file item reader, which is ultimately extending the item reader. So if you just go here, as you can see, it's extending item stream reader, and it's ultimately extending the item reader. So this is what we came from the start: item reader, item processor, and item writer. So this interfaces you have to implement, but Spring is already implementing few of them for you. There are some standard readers available. One is flat file item reader, one is JDBC item reader. So if you want to read from database, then you can use the inbuilt readers, or you can go ahead and create one of yourself. But I'm going to use the inbuilt one. And then we've got the processor. So in my case, I'm creating a processor as a composite processor. So like I mentioned, you can chain multiple processors together. So this is an example of that. You can have your declaration of all the processors. So if you want to have a pre-processor, let's say you want to ingest the data, but before processing it, you want to validate, then we can have a validation pre-processor like I have here. So you can actually declare the order in which the processors should be applied. So that is how you can have multiple chains here. Then you've got the writer. So writer is the item writer. I have got it here. This is a generic writer. You've seen this in one of the previous video. We are writing it in Kafka, so pretty simple. And then you can have some advanced settings like skip, which lines to skip. Fault tolerant is that this job is whenever you encounter an exception of type exception, then don't fail the job, you just carry on, you skip all these exceptions. That is what we are telling it. These are the recoverable exceptions. So right now null pointer exception doesn't make sense, but you can just have your business exceptions here, okay? Or if there are any intermittent connection exceptions, etc., then you can put it here. Skip limit is the number of lines that this file can be skipped. So you don't want an entire file to be skipped. So if you can put some kind of static number here, but I've gone for a dynamic one. Let's say you want, if more than 25% of the file is failing, then you want to fail the job. So you can have that kind of logic here. Retry is which are the retriable exceptions, and what is the retry limit. So you don't want to retry infinitely. You just give maximum 3 or 5 times, that's all. And you can just build a step here. That is how you create the job and step. And later in future videos, we'll have this entire flow working. But this is a starter way where you can actually configure the job and step. And for you to get started, I think for now, you must be feeling comfortable with the Spring Batch APIs. So that's it. Thank you.